Good evening, werewolf fans of Toronto. Let me hear you howl! I think you can do a little better than that. Let me hear you howl! Welcome to Toronto Dark's first ever werewolf night, where we have back-to-back screenings of two awesome werewolf flicks here for the North American premiere of Wolves. You excited? Before we get into tonight's main festival, let me just tell you about some of the other things that we have coming up. We've got Wolves in a few moments. At 9:30 p.m. we have Late Phases. And this is a very cool indie werewolf thriller and stars Nick D'Amici, who some fans may know from Stakeland, and our opening night film a few years ago. Anyone see Mulberry Street? Enjoy that? So Nick D'Amici is the star of that, and he gives a fantastic performance here as a veteran, a war vet, in a community that is being stalked by a rogue werewolf. And it's up to this washed-up ex-soldier to plan how to trap and kill this beast. And it all builds up to an explosive confrontation. So check out Late Phases. Unfortunately, the film is one that is relatively recent, so there's not a lot of press and coverage about it, but we're really happy that we've got a great independent werewolf film with lots of old school practical effects coming up straight after. And also you're going to see a lot of good practicals in the film that you're about to see now. What else have we got coming up? Straight after Late Phases, Pub After Dark. Join us at the Office Pub every night of the festival. We have a 4 a.m. license, so you can destroy your livers as well as your brains after you've seen films here. And filmmakers generally hang out every night. It's a great place to meet them and chat to them. Tomorrow night, any Elijah Wood fans in the audience? And any fans of a film, a very cool little sci-fi thriller called Time Crimes? So director of Time Crimes, Nacho Vigalondo, has made a new film called Open Windows, and it stars Elijah Wood, and it's here at 7 o'clock tomorrow, and it's a very sort of Hitchcockian thriller with a young website manager, Elijah Wood, who gets trapped in a nefarious web online and a secret cult organization, and it seems there's a whole bunch of people's lives in danger, and how can he try and solve this mystery? So it's very cool, it's very tense, it's a great thriller, and that's 7 o'clock tomorrow, Open Windows. And then at 9:30 p.m. we have the film that the Toronto Star recently posted is the best film at Toronto After Dark. It is called Kumiko the Treasure Hunter. Any fans of Fargo, the movie, or the TV series? So Kumiko is a very interesting film. It won a special jury award at Sundance. Unfortunately, there's no trailer available, but let me tell you, the entire program team is really excited that we have this film. It's a very different film for Tad, and it is a story about a Japanese girl who is obsessed with the movie Fargo and believes that the treasure, the money that is buried by Steve Buscemi in the film, is out there somewhere, buried in the snow. So she uses all her last cash to travel to the United States, hardly speaks any English, and goes searching for the money. And it's a very cool sort of fish out of water, fairy tale-like, dream-like. It's very haunting. I think you will love Kumiko. Take it from me, there's a reason it's won tons of awards. Forget about the fact it doesn't have a trailer. You will really love this film. It's 9:30 tomorrow night. We still have some tickets left for it. And I think it's one of the real gems at Toronto After Dark. What else have we got coming up? We've got Sci-Fi Night on Tuesday. We've got Post-Apocalyptic Night on Wednesday. And we've got some other great films on Thursday. The Town That Dreaded Sundown. And a few tickets left to Why Horror, a really cool documentary about what it means to be a horror fan, which is playing on Thursday night, followed by our closing night films, Let Us Pray, a very cool demonic thriller, and The Scary The Babadook, which we're working on. We've heard from you fans. You would love to have a second screening to The Babadook because it did sell out so quickly. So we're going to try in the next 48 hours to get a second screening of The Babadook. So watch our Twitter feed at Tad Film Fest. That will be a late night show if we can do it, and it'll happen at 11:45 this Friday. So look out for that. All right, let's talk about the films for tonight. Before we play feature films, we normally have shorts, and we have some short filmmakers tonight to introduce the world premiere of Rose in Bloom. Please give a big, warm Toronto welcome to some Winnipeggers. Come on up, guys. Introduce the short.
Hey everybody, my name is Trevor Kristjanson. I'm the writer-director of Rose in Bloom. This is Lyle Morris, one of the actors from the film. I just would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and the Toronto After Dark Film Fest for supporting me. And yeah, it's great. I hope the film speaks for itself and y'all enjoy it.
Cheers. We'll see you guys in the pub. Okay, our feature film presentation for tonight. It's really exciting when we get a werewolf film at the festival. I'm a huge fan of monster movies, and we don't get too many monster flicks sent to us, especially independently produced and locally shot with a fantastic cast, some great action sequences, and it's a ton of fun. I'm really excited to say that the director has flown in today to be here with us. Please give a warm Toronto After Dark welcome for the director, a man who you might know as the writer of X-Men 1 and 2, and the voice, Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. Please give it up for David Hayter to introduce his film Wolves and some of his friends.
There's no escape. So great.
I love your
Thank
friends.
you all
Very
for
furry.
being here, and thank you in particular. I know it's a busy night for you guys, what with the moon and all. I have to say this is a very special night, and for me, this is our North American premiere. You're the first people to see it, and this was the theater where I first saw X-Men for the first time with an actual audience full of real people. So it's very cool to be back here again. We have a number of people who worked on the film. A number of our actors are here. I'll be back for a Q&A afterwards. I hope you enjoy Wolves. It's sort of meant to be a love letter to the 80s films I grew up with, like Near Dark or Lost Boys, and there's a lot of old school stuff. It's really, hopefully a fun action film, and I hope you dig it. And thank you all to all of my lycanthropes here.
Please give it up for Theatrics Costume House as well, and their wonderful crew. Cheers. Oh! David, we'll see you for the Q&A.
All right, I'll see you
Cheers.
guys afterwards. Enjoy.
David.
And enjoy Rose and Bloom.
One final big thank you to our main sponsors. Give it up for Anchor Bay Entertainment, Room Org, Space, and Cineplex. Our wonderful volunteers and hardworking staff. And also especially tonight, Copper Heart Entertainment and E1 Films for helping us get the film. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Big cheer for them. And you can vote for the Audience Choice Award for Wolves. And otherwise, can you please kindly turn off your cell phones and digital devices and enjoy Wolves and Rose and Bloom. And we'll see you afterwards for a fun Q&A. One last time, let me hear you howl! Cheers. See you after dark. Give it up for Wolves, everybody. Give some howls. A lot of fun, eh? Shot right here in Toronto. And please give it up for the director, David Hayter.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for watching my little movie. I appreciate the laughter. That was my primary intent.
So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, then we'll throw it open to the floor.
And wolf boobs.
You threw me off my thought there.
Sorry.
So, David, you obviously have a background in writing screenplays with X-Men 1 and 2, Watchmen, and others. And this was your directorial debut. So do you want to talk about the transition and the challenges that you faced moving from, one role into a different one, and how that made you appreciate it?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, it's great to be a screenwriter, but it can be very frustrating when people take your stuff and twist it around and do things you didn't want to do with it. And when you're the director, it's easier to stay on top of that stuff. I love the directing process, and the cast and crew was so good, and so many of the people who worked on the movie are here. A number of our
Give
cast
it up for all
members.
the cast and crew here in the audience. Working Wolves.
Yeah. Our editor, our composer, Miriam, the sluttiest girl in town, is here. And Eric, the mayor, just left, and Larson Wills is over there, and the football referee, and the truck stop hoe, I believe, is here. So thank you so much, guys, because just everybody on this was really remarkable to work with.
And talking about the story, influences. One of the ideas behind this film, I believe, was that you were trying to do your own sort of version of a werewolf tale, and I guess there are always influences in werewolf cinema, but you were also doing some of your own sort of little riffs and departures on that. Do you want to talk about some of your influences and conscious decisions to avoid traditional stereotypes in werewolf films?
Yeah. I mean, a werewolf film is a very difficult thing to pull off, and as you can see, I mean, some of it's great, and some of it, is tougher to make work. But I always felt that American Werewolf in London was the greatest werewolf film of all time.
I think we got some fans of that.
Right? Yeah. Just a remarkable film, and written when John Landis was 19 years old, and just an incredible piece of work. And I felt when we took this on that was the definitive telling of the classic tale. So, kid gets bit, he starts to change, he starts to kill people, and then he has to be hunted down. And that's, an amazing story, but it's also kind of inherently depressing. And I wanted to do something a little different, and I thought back to my high school years, which were here over in Mississauga. And
you're a Toronto boy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I lived all over the world, but I spent most of my life growing up in Toronto, and this is my hometown. And in fact, so that the makeout scene with Caitlin Lieb and Lucas at the beginning of the film is about 500 yards from my old high school, and it's where I used to go to make up.
So this is basically a personal retelling.
It's an autobiographical story. I mean, it definitely is, because when you hit 17 and you've moved around a lot and you've been hassled a lot, there's a point at which you snap and you just start to fight back. And so the scenes of fighting football players and all that stuff, that's all true to life. And I thought, if we could create a film that was about that period in your life, and about that unformed rage and sex and violence and all that stuff that you're dealing with at that age, then, in life, your goal is not to destroy that. It's to learn to control it, learn to focus it, and learn to put it into more positive areas. So I thought, when I had that idea, I thought that's something that speaks to me, and I think that's something that hasn't really been done yet with this genre.
Cool. And we got some questions here from the audience. Anybody want to throw one out? Anyone got a hand? Just raise it up over there in the middle.
I don't know why Kiefer Sutherland.
Is there a psychic connection?
Thank you.
Can you shout it out louder? Sorry.
Casting. What was the process for casting? I thought the casting was really well done. I just want to know about how you went about casting the film.
Let's go for that fantastic cast of yours, including Lucas Till, Jason Momoa, and of course Stephen McHattie, another Canadian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they really, all those people you just mentioned sought out the project. I mean, the script was sort of going around, and I got a call from Lucas's agent, and I thought, he not only would he be amazing, but he's right at that point in his life where I wanted somebody who, was a believable boy who could become a believable man, and so that was pretty cool. And then once he was on board, the same agency called and said, "What about Jason Momoa for Connor?" And I was like, "Oh, shit, yeah, that could work."
And he is awesome in that role.
He's so good. I mean, because I knew from Game of Thrones that he was good. You could see the love in his eyes for the Khaleesi, and he's really a pretty, for an intimidating guy, he's a pretty subtle actor. And so, I don't want you to be the thug. I want you to be smart, and and always watching. And so Jason went to a wolf rescue to study with the wolves. And they actually gave him a wolf. He's got this enormous timber wolf lives in his backyard. True story. And then he came up to me when we were in the barn. The barn scene was the first we shot, and it was so amazing to have those three guys, sort of going toe to toe. And Jason comes up to me and he goes, "Okay, dude, I got it. So this is what I learned from the wolf thing. I see you, I see around you, and I see through you." And I was like, "Yeah, good, great. do that. That works." And then so we needed a Canadian to play Tollerman, and his agent, who I've known, who was my agent when I, 20 years ago here in Canada, calls up and says, "Well, what about Steve McHattie?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do that," because I worked on the movie Watchmen, and he played Hollis Mason. And he's, just
a phenomenal actor. I don't even understand how he does what he does, but I knew that he would lend an enormous amount of gravitas to that part. But what I didn't realize was, Stephen is literally half the size of Jason Momoa. And I had written the part to be, he's very fearful of Connor. And then they got on set, and I was like, oh, Steve McHattie's not fearful of anything. And then to watch them go toe to toe, and there's a longer extended version of that scene. We had to cut it down for various reasons, but it was so glorious just watching them, like Jason trying to intimidate Steven and Steven just giving it right back, and it was really, really cool to watch. So, and then all the rest of my cast was so good. We really, found some great actors, like Casey Hudecki. So the girl who gets beat up at the truck stop is a friend of mine. We did a movie called Devil's Maya, but she's an incredible stunt woman. She's a great actress, but an incredible stunt woman, and I knew she could really take a punch and be adorable and deliver this amazing scene. And then Gail, Melanie Scrofano, who plays Gail, the drunken sister. I thought, maybe this is too far, and maybe it's too, people were coming in and reading for it, and it just wasn't working, and I was like, that's too goofy, it's not gonna work. And then Melanie came in, and she did her thing, and she read her lines, and then when we were finished, she got up and walked straight into the wall. And I was like, okay, yeah, great. So yeah, so a lot of great people.
We got some more from the audience. Anybody want to throw one out? Over there.
So, having directed now, phenomenal job, by the way. Is
Thank
it
you.
something that you want to do again, and if so, what's next for you?
I do, yeah, no, it was amazing, and I love screenwriting, but it can be very frustrating because people don't, listen to you, and then they warned me. They said, when you direct, look, people are going to come at you with 1,000 questions, every hour, and I was like, yes, good, thank God, finally, they can't do anything until I say so, and so that was pretty cool. So I have another film that I've written with a friend of mine. Actually, the guy who says he's going to party after he kills Caden and then gets his throat cut, he and I wrote a script called Winter, which we're talking about doing with Copperheart, which are the Canadian producers on the film. So hopefully another film here in Toronto soon.
Yeah, let's talk about the awesome special effects and prosthetics and.
Yeah, so the concept there, I looked at many werewolf films, and many of them are not great, and the creature is very difficult to pull off. And so I came up with a number of theories. First of all, I wouldn't put a snout on an actor. Anything that alters the human form radically and sort of makes you think of something funny doesn't work. So snout kind of looks like a big nose on people. The claws, if they're long and straight, it always reads like a transvestite sort of drag queen to me. So they had these curved claws, these hook claws, and the ears. When they point straight up, they sort of read like elf ears to me, and so we had them angled back because when a wolf is angry, its ears go back, and it gives it this vicious aspect. And then everything was designed to go back from the face, so everything leads the eye back, so that we could keep the face relatively clear and keep the latex, glued to the muscle of the face, so that when somebody has an emotional reaction, you see the actor coming through. Like the moment when Lucas finds out that while Joe killed his parents, his face falls and it just comes right through the makeup, and it's very cool, and you get the personality of the actor. So I took these concepts to them and I said, I want them sleeker than usual. I want them more beautiful, like wolves are in nature, not hairy, crazy monsters. And so they just did this phenomenal job. They sculpted these beautiful pieces of art and painted them, and then all of that fur is real fur that's been plugged in hair by hair by a table of like 20 women in Sun Valley, in California. And like the masks, each mask was like 60 grand, and every time you take it off, it's destroyed. So the scene where Momoa is looking over the edge of the cliff and then gets up and turns around was the only thing we shot that night. So they put him in this makeup. It takes 4 hours. He came out at 3:30 in the morning, shot for 2.5 minutes, and then we destroyed that mask. So yeah, we tried to, for a modestly budgeted film, we put a lot of money into the creatures, almost on a par with like a major $80 million film. We really tried to execute those things in a way that was special and unique.
I think it shows. We've got a couple more questions from the audience. Anyone at the back want to shout something out? Anybody?
Can you talk about how much the budget was?
Oh, the budget question.
Yeah, what am I supposed to say, Mark? The budget was $15 million. But when you're selling the film, you're supposed to say it was less, or you're supposed to say it's more, and then when it comes out, you're supposed to say it was less. But the actual budget was $15 million.
And I was going to ask you about those action sequences, because again, they were really impressive, and it looked like you were doing, you're trying to avoid the dreaded CGI solution as much as possible. Do you want to talk about, which I think our fans can appreciate, going old school with action?
Yeah. Well, I wanted it all in camera.
Yeah, and just talk about that, and maybe if you had any horror stories making some of those scenes, because I'm sure it's harder to do.
Yeah. I mean, the prosthetics are certainly a tricky thing to work with. I'm sorry, Mark. Remind me the name of our fight coordinator, Brad. What's his last name? Brad Allen. So Brad Allen is this amazing fight coordinator, and he designed these fights. And and again, the rule was no karate wolves, no kung fu wolves. These are just wolves. Like, they fight with body mass, they fight with slashes, so a lot of knife fighting sort of techniques, and just the sheer force of their bodies and teeth. And so he would come up with these fights, and they'd show me, and then there'd be like too much flipping, and I'd be like, okay, pare that back, more and more vicious. And and I really, the fight scenes are really due to Brad Allen, Paul Rapofsky, who was our other stunt lead, who was Jason Momoa's stunt double, a great big dude. And so we did that. The horror stories, I mean, just being in the costume is a horror story. I mean, it's horrifically hot. Even when it's freezing outside, Jason would carry an ice bucket around, and there were tubes that ran ice water through the suit to keep him from bursting into flames. And but I mean, it was mostly little things. The suits were remarkably durable, but like there was a scene which has been cut, but Lucas goes up and grabs Deke, and he's sort of half wolfed, and so he's got the nails on him. He doesn't have the full claw gloves, and he like this, and then Deke would pull back, and then all the nails would go and they'd fly everywhere, and they cost $60 a piece. So the crew would go around picking them up, and then they ransom them back to us at $10 a nail. So a nice little side business for the crew.
And I think we've got time for just one more question from the audience. Does anybody want something up there? Go.
What is?
Okay, actually, we'll go here.
If you have a question, just come up to me and I'll answer.
And you're going to be at the pub as well later on tonight.
Well, I'll be at the pub. I mean, listen, you ought to hear my answers then.
You're Canadian.
I'm Canadian. I'll be at the pub.
Half Canadian.
The lower half.
There we go.
You.
A weird or funny story.
Weird or funny stories. I'm going to tell you. If I don't know if we'll be able to put it out, but we put together a gag reel for the film, and one of the hardest things we had to do on the film was have Connor smash through that fucking fence. So we started shooting that scene with about 45 minutes before daylight, and I apologize, Paul, if you're here, because Jason made me say that this was you. The first time, so to do that, we score the back of the board so they're easily breakable, and then it was Paul in the Connor suit had to run through, but you had to break 3 boards with your body, and like the bottom one's with your ankle, and I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. And the first shot, they come through, they're chasing Caden, and he leaps over, and 2 guys leap over, they're doing mini tramps over the fence, and then Paul comes and goes boom, and bounces back off the fence. Which is not his fault. It was the scoring on the fence. But Jason said, "You better, if you put out that gag reel, I better say not Jason Momoa on there." and so I was like, "Yeah, okay." But so he bounced off the first time. Second time, scored it better. They're chasing after Kate, and he's bouncing and bouncing, and Paul comes along and bam, bursts through the fence, and it's fantastic. It's just perfect, flawless, and great because the sun is coming up in 10 minutes. And then we play it back, and one of the wolves is coming back from craft services with soup. And I'm watching the monitor, and I said, "What the fuck was he doing there?" And all the Canadian crew was like, "Oh my, that's a little over the top." But I felt it was justified. Anyway, so that happened, and each time we have to put the fence back up. I mean, they have to put new boards back up and screw them in, and by the time we do the third one, the sun is coming up, like it's up back here. The sky's still black over here, and we did it. I can't remember what happened, but it didn't work again. So the next night, we have to get it again, and now it's Jason, and Jason comes in, and he hits that fence so hard that he breaks all the boards, but he hits it with such force that the fence posts turn and all the other boards fall off. Like, I mean, it's just, and it's too funny. It just doesn't work. He's just destroyed the entire fence. And I'm like, look, the amount of money we have spent just trying to get this one shot is killing me. But we need to get him into the damn barnyard. And so I'm like, okay, one more, and this is it. This is the whole thing. I don't care if somebody's got soup in the background, this is it. And the shot that is in the movie is the last shot we did, and Jason comes running through. He goes, bang, blows it all open, but his ankle gets caught on the bottom rung, and he starts to go down. And you see it in the film, and just 1 second after he knows he's going down, he just gets this look on his face, and he goes, "Wah!" And he flips and comes up, and he's and I was like, "You are a rock star." So, and if you watch that shot, not only does he decide to do the flip in the shot and come up like a freaking rock star, but my friend Phil Hayes, who plays Keno, trips over the fence as well in the background. And I was like, fuck it, moving on.
Everyone give it up for David Hayter. Walls. And
Thank you so much, guys.
before you go, the film is getting released. Do you have a date for Canada, theatrical?
Well, the theatrical release is November 14th. Same with Canada? Yeah,
Okay, so November 14th, tell your friends.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll see you at Pub After Dark after 11:30 after the next film finishes. Thank you,
See you
David.
there.
Cheers.
Thank you, Toronto After Dark.
David.
Toronto.
Yeah, so that's about it. Remember to Twitter. Enjoy the show.